What if the very people who pride themselves on rejecting God are just as trapped in their own cathedral of certainty as those who kneel before golden crosses every Sunday morning? Picture this: two armies facing each other across a battlefield that doesn't exist, fighting over territory that neither side can see, while the real war unfolds in dimensions beyond their perception. The atheist sits in their chair, smugly dismissing centuries of human spiritual experience as delusion, never questioning whether their materialist worldview is itself another form of fundamentalism. The believer clutches their holy book, certain they possess ultimate truth, never wondering if their God might be too small for the infinite mystery that surrounds us. Both are prisoners of the same cage, the desperate human need to know, to be certain, to have answers in a universe that whispers only questions. Quantum physics reveals that reality itself refuses to conform to our binary thinking. Particles exist in superposition until observed, defying our neat categories of is or isn't. Yet here we are, dividing ourselves into believers and non-believers, as if consciousness could be reduced to a simple yes or no vote on the existence of God. The atheist declares, "Show me the evidence." But what if the evidence exists in frequencies their instruments cannot detect, in dimensions their measurements cannot reach? The believer proclaims, "Have faith." But what if faith without questioning is just intellectual suicide dressed in holy robes? Consider the arrogance. Humans, who have existed for mere milliseconds in cosmic time, claiming definitive knowledge about the nature of ultimate reality. We are insects, debating the existence of radio waves while possessing only the capacity to perceive visible light. The materialist insists consciousness emerges from brain chemistry, yet cannot explain why there is subjective experience at all, why there is something it's like to be you. They speak of neurons and synapses with the same reverence religious fundamentalists reserve for angels and miracles. Meanwhile, the religious fundamentalist claims direct communication with the infinite. Yet their God sounds remarkably similar to their own cultural prejudices and personal desires. Both sides mistake their maps for the territory, their models for reality itself. The mystics throughout history, those troublesome souls who reported direct experience of the divine, were often rejected by both camps. Too weird for the materialists, too threatening for the institutionally religious. They spoke of unity where others saw division, of mystery where others demanded certainty. Modern neuroscience now confirms what shamans have known for millennia. Consciousness is far stranger than our everyday experience suggests. Meditation alters brain states in ways that reveal the constructed nature of the self we take to be solid and permanent. Psychedelics, those illegal keys to altered perception, consistently produce experiences that challenge both materialist and conventional religious worldviews. The atheist calls these experiences hallucinations. The fundamentalist calls them demonic. Both responses reveal the same fear. What if our worldview is incomplete? What if the universe is neither the cold, meaningless machine described by hardcore materialism, nor the cosmic dictatorship imagined by authoritarian religion? What if reality is far more creative, mysterious, and alive than either camp dares to imagine? The ancient Gnostics suggested we live in a kind of prison of perception, mistaking shadows on the cave wall for ultimate reality. Modern conspiracy researchers whisper about hidden controllers manipulating human consciousness through religion, media, and education. But perhaps the greatest conspiracy is the one we perpetrate against ourselves: the refusal to entertain radical uncertainty. The atheist and the believer are both seeking the same thing: security in an insecure universe, certainty in the face of mystery. They want to sleep soundly at night, knowing they have the right answers. But what if the right answer is that there are no final answers, only deeper questions, more beautiful mysteries? The mystic poets knew this. Rumi spoke of God as the beloved, who can never be possessed, only courted through surrender and wonder. Lao Tzu opened his most famous work by declaring that the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Even Jesus, that figure claimed by so many who would confine the infinite to their small boxes, spoke in parables rather than systematic theology. He pointed beyond himself toward a reality too vast for words, too alive for doctrine. The tragedy is not that humans seek meaning. That is our glory. The tragedy is that we so often settle for meaning that is too small. The atheist settles for a universe without purpose. The fundamentalist settles for a God without mystery. Both abdicate the terrifying responsibility of thinking for themselves, of trusting their own direct experience. The atheist outsources their spiritual authority to scientists. The believer outsources theirs to priests and prophets. But what if you are the authority on your own consciousness? What if your direct experience is more reliable than any secondhand report? This doesn't mean embracing solipsism or abandoning critical thinking. It means recognizing that reality might be far more participatory than we imagine. Quantum mechanics suggests that consciousness plays a fundamental role in collapsing wave functions, in determining what becomes real. The observer effect indicates that consciousness and reality are entangled in ways that mock our subject-object distinctions. If this is true, then your consciousness is not separate from the universe. It is how the universe becomes aware of itself. The atheist's consciousness and the believer's consciousness are both expressions of the same cosmic awakening. Their arguments are the universe arguing with itself, exploring the parameters of its own existence. But most remain trapped in the argument, never stepping back to see the larger pattern. They are like characters in a novel, fighting over whether the author exists, never realizing they are all expressions of the same creative source. The real question is not whether God exists, but whether you have the courage to encounter mystery directly, to sit with uncertainty, to remain open to possibilities that would shatter your current worldview. The atheist afraid of appearing gullible, the believer afraid of losing their salvation, both controlled by fear, masquerading as certainty. True skepticism questions everything, including the assumptions of skepticism itself. True faith remains open to possibilities beyond current understanding. The mystics of every tradition report the same basic discovery. The separate self is an illusion. Consciousness is fundamental. Love is the organizing principle. This can't be proven in a laboratory or defended through scripture. It can only be verified through direct investigation. But such investigation requires abandoning the comfort of inherited beliefs, whether materialist or religious. It requires entering the space between knowing and not knowing, where all real discovery occurs. The space where you stop defending positions and start exploring territory. Consider, what if both the atheist and the believer are right about what they reject, but wrong about what they accept? The atheist correctly rejects anthropomorphic deities and religious dogma, but incorrectly assumes this proves materialism. The believer correctly intuits that reality has spiritual dimensions, but incorrectly confines this to specific doctrines and institutions. What if the truth is in the space between their positions, neither the cold materialism of atheism, nor the rigid anthropomorphism of fundamentalism? What if consciousness is the fundamental fabric of reality, expressing itself through countless forms and perspectives? What if every being is a unique aperture through which the universe experiences itself? Then the atheist's doubt and the believer's faith are both sacred expressions, both necessary movements in consciousness, exploring its own nature. The problem arises when either position becomes rigid, when exploration stops and ideology begins, when the atheist stops questioning their assumptions about consciousness and causation, when the believer stops questioning their assumptions about God and Scripture. Both become prisoners of their own certainty, blind to the living mystery that surrounds and includes them. The invitation is simple, but terrifying. Step outside your ideological fortress and encounter reality directly. What if the question is not whether God exists, but whether you are brave enough to find out what existence actually is?